Hey everyone, what's going on? In order to understand this video, you're going to have to check out some links that I'm going to leave in the description and check out some of my other videos. There's too much information to re-explain, and it's kind of a follow-up within each video, if that makes sense. And anyway, on Sunday afternoon, I posted this video where I talked about Buffy the Vampire Slayer being on the finale episode of The Big Bang Theory. And the reason that was important is because if you go back and look at my videos back in March, I talked about The Big Bang Theory and why Buffy the Vampire Slayer was synced up with it. And then why is Buffy the Vampire Slayer the running joke on the finale of The Big Bang Theory then, right? And there's a lot more that goes along with it. But also in this video, I talked about how Slipknot had released a new song, and Slipknot is really important to the same narrative that I am talking about with all of these things. A lot of it is synced up to the date of August 10th. There's something very important to the date of August 10th. Slipknot is going to be performing at the Iowa State Fair for the very first time ever. They're a band from Slipknot, and if you go clear back to some of my old videos from 2015, the Iowa State Fair was really important to Donald Trump because he said that he was Batman in a helicopter at the Iowa State Fair. And around that same time, we got the death of Batgirl, the real-life lady Yvonne Craig, who played Batgirl. We got the death of a guy who dressed up like Batman and went around to hospitals. We also got the death of Morgan Freeman's granddaughter, who they showed on the mainstream media articles. They showed Morgan Freeman and her at the Batman premieres. And we also had the sentencing of the Batman shooter from 2012 and so on, right? There was all of this stuff with Batman. Even a little bit later in that year, we had the guy who invented the Batmobile die or something like that. And some kid who got touched by Pope Francis wearing the Batman shirt. There was all kinds of Batman stuff going on. And Donald Trump said that he was Batman. That's the moral of the story that I'm trying to get to. And he said it at the Iowa State Fair, which Slipknot is going to be performing at for the first time this year. And, there's more to it. But a lot of what I've talked about with August 10th is also synced up to France. And this year on August 10th, it will be the 227th anniversary of the fall of the French monarchy. And the reason this is important is because in this ancient knowledge practice of coding numbers into words and phrases called gematria, in which the band Slipknot has a song even on their album called All Hope Is Gone, gematria, and then it's in quotations, the killing name. So they know about this system, but within this system, if you write out French monarchy, it equals 227. And if you write out French Revolution, it equals 227. And the French Revolution began because of an assembly of the Estates General that equals 227. And Napoleon, he was born on the 227th day of the year. And he died on 5/5, which in history is also the same day that the French Revolution began. And in 2016, on the 227th anniversary of the storming of the Bastille, we got the Nice, France van attack. So there's something important to August 10th this year, how it syncs up to France, and so on. That story of Donald Trump in 2015 saying he was Batman, it also happened on the date of August 15th, which is Napoleon's birthday even, right? So even more synced up. What else is interesting about the band Slipknot is they're from Iowa. They're from Des Moines, Iowa. And if you look up the only president that is from Iowa, Herbert Hoover, and he's really important to the stock market crash. He was the president during the stock market crash. Think about Donald Trump, the guy who wants to build the wall, Wall Street, the richest president, and so on. But look at Herbert Hoover's birthday. Herbert Hoover was born on August 10th. Also, the state of Iowa has a whole lot of connections to France. Iowa was originally part of French Louisiana. You know, Des Moines is actually comes from the French for something like of the monks for the Des Moines River, right? And the Iowa state flag is even a flag that is, made to honor the French flag. Look at this flag, and then look at the flag of France. Flag of France. It's, the Iowa flag is even made in honor of the French flag. They're from, originally it was part of French Louisiana. Also, Des Moines is important because Des Moines just so happened to be incorporated on September 22nd of 1851, which is interesting because this year on September 22nd, that will be the 227th anniversary of the French Republic. Let's just show you here, France. The French Republic was established on September 22nd, 1792. So what are the odds? Des Moines founded or incorporated on September 22nd as well. Iowa has all these connections to France even. So hopefully you get the gist that there's a bunch of stuff that is connected to France. Even, we've had a lot of events in France in the last few months as well. Think about the Notre Dame fire and so on. The Notre Dame fire that was synced up to Garth Brooks, who performed at the College Notre Dame earlier this year. And Garth Brooks has that song called Standing Outside the Fire. And then people were standing outside watching the Notre Dame Cathedral burning and so on. Garth Brooks equals 134, and he did that concert at Notre Dame. They aired that concert 134 days before the Notre Dame fire. We also, had the women's Notre Dame basketball team losing the championship just days before the Notre Dame fire. There's a whole lot of other things I've covered. Even the New Orleans Pelicans, who landed the first pick of the NBA lottery or the first pick in the draft, and they're most likely going to take Zion Williamson. That is all synced up to France as well. The day that they won that lottery was the day in history that King Louis, whatever it is, the 14th, I believe it is. That's the day that he became the king. And that's the day that his father died. That's also the day that his grandfather died. And Louisiana is even named in honor of him. So I could be wrong with what number he was, but it's King Louis something. And just pointing out, there's been lots of stories with France. So I'm doing all this Slipknot stuff. I'm talking about all this August 10th stuff again. And then all of a sudden we get this story about a guy who climbs the Eiffel Tower, of all places. And I had just recently mentioned how the Eiffel Tower was important in one of my blog posts because the Slipknot is going to be playing at the Iowa State Fair. And a long time ago, I documented how the Eiffel Tower was actually created to be shown off at the World's Fair in 1889, I believe it was. But anyway, what sticks out so much? So there's a guy who's trying to climb the Eiffel Tower. And if you go back to this post I had back in January where I talked about this TV show with Trump building the wall and whatnot, this is the first post where I mentioned all of this stuff with the French Revolution and how it syncs up to August 10th. This is when I first noticed all them 227s, August 10th, talking about all this stuff with France and so on. And what else I mentioned in this post was how on August 10th of 2016, we had a guy, this kid here, who climbed the Trump Tower, right? And he left this really strange message for Donald Trump the day before, and so on. But he climbed the tower, and a bunch of the articles were calling him Spider-Man. And the new Spider-Man that had just came out, it has Spider-Man's birthday of August 10th. Back around that time, CNN even gave us a story about the French Spider-Man and why this kid didn't climb up the thing. And this French Spider-Man, he's climbed up all kinds of stuff. So it's interesting. He's currently 56 years old, and in Gematria, if you're at Eiffel Tower, it equals 56, just like Paris, France equals 56. Just like how when there was the ISIS attack, ISIS equals 56 and so on. But, what are the odds? CNN even gives us a story about the French Spider-Man around that same time. And this guy's, claims it on August 10th, Spider-Man's birthday in the newest film. It's on August 10th. We just had the death of the guy who created Spider-Man, right? Who was Stan Lee. His real name equals 222, August 10th, the 222nd day of the year. He died 271 days before August 10th, which is interesting because that's the 58th prime number. And with the end date, August 10th, is 58 days after Donald Trump's birthday. Donald Trump won the 58th election in 2016, the 58th presidential election. He was in the 58-story Trump Tower when he found out he won the election. Also, he became the president on January 20th, 2017. That has a date numerology of 58. He hired 58-year-old Steve Ray to announce his inauguration as to be the president and so on. There's a whole bunch of 58 in connection with that. What's interesting, too, in regards to this, how it connects to Slipknot, is if you go to my video that I made earlier in the day where I talked about Slipknot and its connection to the Iowa State Fair and a bunch of stuff, I mentioned how it was also connected to this troll theme. The Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff was all about this troll theme. And I talked about how my Corey Taylor video from 2015 was the biggest trolled video that I have ever got or that I can remember. And I mean, I barely get any views on a lot of these videos, and I don't ever get trolled that hard. And then I made this video about the death of Sean Crahan, the member of Slipknot's daughter, and it is absolutely nothing but trolled comments. I mean, in the words of Zachary K. Hubbard, no one could be this fucking brain-dead retarded. Like, if it's not trolls, no one can be this fucking retarded. Like, just, you can't be that stupid, It's so obvious. Like, why would Slipknot have a song called Gematria, the killing name, if they don't know anything about Gematria? And, all of these people die by the same code. It's not that hard to figure out. Why would Marilyn Manson have a song called Say 10? And he says, you say God, and I say 10, like the number, and God equals 10, and Satan equals 10, I mean, there's just so many examples of how this exists. Like, it's just ridiculous. Every day I can cover a story in the mainstream media, or multiple stories, and how they're synced up this way, Like how, I wrote it in here, but how Magic Johnson just came out and called out Rob Pelinka for, Rob Pelinka was the reason that Magic Johnson retired on the date of 4/9. And Rob Pelinka just so happens to be 49 years old. His name in Gematria equals 49. And him and Magic Johnson's birthdays are 4 months and 9 days apart even. I mean, it's just absolutely stupid. And he used to be the agent for Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant equals 49. And remember, Kevin Durant got injured 49 days after his supposed brother, or whatever it was, Cliff Dixon, died. And Warriors equal 49, and that was on the same day that the Magic Johnson said this, on the same day the Warriors swept the Portland Trail Blazers. So, just moral of the story. I'm not going to even, arouse. I went through it. I typed a bunch of messages just because I know it's mostly people trolling, but, like this guy. I wonder what number syncs up to no one cares. Well, oddly enough, no one cares that Gematria equals the same as Slipknot, so, no one cares equals 46. Even 161, just like Sean Crahan equals 161, and it was 161 days after Corey Taylor's birthday. I mean, the odds, Slipknot 46. And his daughter, her name equals 116, and she died 4 months and 6 days before his birthday. Paul Gray died 46 days or 1 month and 16 days before his birthday. It's just a joke. How can you deny that? You're absolutely You have to be a troll or just absolutely brain dead retarded. Just how Zach always puts it. And I'm always pretty nice to people, so it's just hilarious to me. But moral of the story too is, I always talk about how these things are important to me. I'm supposed to see these things. And I know for a fact, I talked about how it's synced up to this trolling theme. And then all of a sudden I get this absolutely super trolled video. It's important. There's a reason for it. And back to the 58 stuff that I was talking about, the word troll I noticed equals 58. So maybe there's something important to that. Maybe that's what it is. My name even equals 58. Dan Barrett equals 58. When I went on Zachary K. Hubbard's radio show years ago, it just so happened to be the 58th episode. It wasn't planned. It just worked out that way. I didn't have to go to band practice or something like that day. So I went on a show, and it just so happened to be the 58th episode, just like how my name equals 58, Because this system exists all around us every single day. And if my family member died by the code, and I document about it all the time, but I would want people to know. I mean, I want people to understand this world. Don't you find it interesting that all of these connections happen in regards to people's deaths? Don't you want to know, like, the reason for living? Like, what is the purpose of life? Somebody commented about how we're all gonna die in the next 100 years anyway, right? Well, exactly, but nobody really knows what happens when you die, and this code is something that really nobody understands or knows about as far as the general population. So, I mean, don't you want to know what the purpose of the world is and what the purpose of living is? It's not just to go to work every day and be a slave and then die and then have no clue what the point of anything ever was. That's the whole point of making these videos. That's the whole point of life to me. I want to figure out what the purpose is. Like, it just seems not purposeful until you understand more of this system. And, sorry for rambling, but it's the truth. Like, I would want people to know how all of these connections exist, because that means there's something bigger and greater in regards to this world. And maybe it doesn't mean that there's something that happens when you die, but at least it means that there's something bigger in this world, and there is a purpose bigger than we know for living. So what else is really odd then, saying all that? After making all these videos on Sunday leading into Monday morning, I went to work on Monday, and there's a new girl that just started a couple days ago, and I've been training her. And she came in, and I don't know what led up to it, but she told me that her last name was French. Like, her last name literally is the word French. And I'm like, what are the odds? I'm training this new girl, talking all about the word French and so on. And I looked up her name. I didn't type it in here, but it's Brandy. And her name equals 222, like how August 10th is the 222nd day of the year. This date connected to France and French, right? And what else is even funnier is that her birthday is November 13th, which is the same day that we had the Paris, France ISIS attack, supposedly, in the year 2015. And at work I also got this, I don't even know, some weird text. I haven't had one of these ever before, but some weird text about joining President Trump against the fake news and whatever. And I just wrote, Trump is a shill and part of the rigged system, wake up, It's just so stupid. Why would I even get that message? And what was funny is that it came at 2:39 p.m. And remember how we got that story before the Eagles won the Super Bowl that Donald Trump weighed 239 pounds, and he called out the NFL for kneeling on the date of 23/9, and that's the 52nd prime number, 239, and it was Super Bowl 52 that the Eagles made, and a bunch of other things that are going on with it, So I just thought it was funny that it was 239, but the 239th year of the United States was the year that we got the Paris, France attack, right? And that was after Pope Francis came to America and went to the White House on 23/9, and so on. And the word Pope equals 52, President equals 52, White House equals 52, all syncing up to this 239 numbers. So I thought it was odd I got that message. Then I come home and can't remember what we were doing. I can't remember what I cooked something and I was sitting on the chair and we heard somebody knock on the door and it was later at night and I was like, my girlfriend went out and answered the door and she goes, "Some girl's here to see you." And I was like, what is going on? And I was like, please don't be the Jehovah Witness lady, you know? But I went outside and then this lady hands me this paper and I get served papers from a civil court or civil case from student loans that I had since 2003. Like, I'm getting served papers for a $4,500 loan that I took out in 2003, and they're just now serving me papers over it. And, you know, it comes from Des Moines, Iowa, Polk County, Des Moines, Iowa. I've just documented all the stuff about, you know, Des Moines and the 515 area code. And then I make these videos about Slipknot, and the next day, somebody delivers me papers from Des Moines, Iowa that I have to go to court for, and whatever, right? And I mean, it just seems odd to me. 16 years later, right after I document about Des Moines and Slipknot and all this, I get these papers that I have to go to Des Moines to court for. I mean, come on. That is just absolutely insane. Why didn't they come 10 years ago? You know, I don't get it. It doesn't make any sense. I'm sure I owe this money. I haven't paid student loans in forever. They just take my tax return and whatever, but, you know, I don't know. It seems so odd. We are trying to buy a new house, so I wonder if that has something to do with it. If they saw I was trying to get a different loan and they were like, oh, well, come try to get his money or whatever, but still strange the day that it comes, you know, right after I make these videos about Slipknot in Des Moines. But anyway, let's go back to this story about the man who climbed the Eiffel Tower. Because there's some interesting things with this story, I guess. Well, or just in general in this post that I made. Because, you know, it reminds me of the Spider-Man guy that climbed the Trump Tower, and we had the death of Stan Lee. And just recently, we also had the story about how Stan Lee got beat up by his whatever it was, the ex-manager, the guy who was beating up Stan Lee, right? We got a story about Stan Lee. Seems odd. Right around the same time we get the story of this guy climbing the tower, right? Reminded us of Spider-Man, whose birthday is August 10th. And we also recently got the story of this architect, I.M. Pei, from China, who designed however you say that, the Louvre Pyramid, and he died at the age of 102. And what's interesting is that his name in satanic gematria equals 227, right? This big number with France. It's also 34 and 29, just like how France equals 34 and 29. And, you know, also his full name equals the same as Paris, France, and he died at the age of 102. And, you know, he died in New York, and it just reminds me of France. Also, a big thing with the day that he died was that's the same day that Slipknot released their new song Unsainted. It's also the same day of the final episode of The Big Bang Theory that was all about Buffy the Vampire Slayer and so on. So the Louvre Pyramid is also made with like a lot of glass panes. Some people even said it's 666, and I was reading about how that's what they talk about in the Da Vinci Code or something, but I've recently had some synchronicity with that movie called Glass as well, with Bruce Willis and whatnot, and I'm not going to talk about that, but I just want to document it. Just want to point it out that there's something important to that, I bet you. And anyway, what's so interesting about this guy in the Louvre Pyramid, he's from China. Just point it out here. This guy is from the Republic of China. And all of this stuff with the Eiffel Tower, right? The Eiffel Tower was built for the World's Fair. And then Slipknot's going to be playing at the Iowa State Fair. And if you look up the World's Fair that is being held this year, it just so happens to be held in China, right? And this also makes me think of Iowa yet again, right? All the stuff in the news with Trump and the tariffs. And we've got a ton of stories about farmers and whatnot being mad about the tariffs, right? I mean, there's been a ton of stories about farmers and tariffs, and of course, we'll look at one really quick. They're all coded by this system. Let me just type in farmer. I'll find one of them. I know I documented about at least one of them. Farmer. Well, that was about a farmer who supposedly amputated his leg, and amputated leg equals 44. He's from Nebraska. That equals 44. I think that's his name, 44. Came 44 days after his birthday, but I don't know. Maybe I didn't document about these. I know I documented about... There's been a lot of farmer stories with the tariffs, though. And I don't know if they're even connected to Iowa. I swear I documented about at least one of them, but... just think about it. All the tariffs with China, and then you got the farmers that makes you think about the area of Iowa. And then we got this World Fair being in China. I went back and looked at my old video where I talked about Donald Trump and the Iowa State Fair, right? Saying he was Batman. And what was interesting is I talked about Yvonne Craig as well, right? The Batgirl who died at that same time, August 17, 2015. And in the article about her, in my video I talked about this, but in the article about her, it tells how she was an accidental actress, and she got into this John Wayne's son's Patrick movie, right? John Wayne, of course, from Iowa, right? But it was that movie, and then she went on to appear in several films, including 2 with Elvis Presley. One of them was called It Happened at the World's Fair, right? So there's something important to this. There has to be. It happened at the World's Fair. It just makes me think that, we need to watch something with China. But possibly not. The World Fair in China this year, well, where did it go? The World's Fair in China is going to end on Vladimir Putin's birthday, October 7th. Let's point it out really quick. It's going until October 7th, which is Vladimir Putin's birthday, which is, just sticks out in my head. It's pretty interesting. Synced up to China. And, I just think it's funny. Look at Yvonne Craig's birthday, May 16th, this day that led me to all of this stuff, right? Her birthday, May 16th. It's also interesting, if you read out World's Fair, it has like identical gematria to North Korea as well. And yeah, I don't know. There's something important to it. Just documenting about it, because August 10th is seemingly a really important day. I truly do wonder if we're just going to get some type of, it's just like 2016, like I'm documenting about, where there's not going to be any big destruction event or anything of the sort. It's just they're flipping the script of some sort, and we're going to learn something from it. But, I don't know for sure. I know it's an important date in regards to something that people who are trying to understand this are going to get a better understanding, or possibly there really is going to be some type of 9/11 similar type event, Des Moines, Iowa is known for being like the insurance capital of almost the world, but it's known for a lot of stuff to do with insurance, which makes me think of like, destroy and rebuild. So Des Moines, an interesting place to be for all this connection stuff too. And anyway, I was thinking about Batman, all this Buffy the Vampire Slayer stuff. And it all started because I saw this story about Buffy the Vampire Slayer from the TV show having wearing lingerie and putting in a tweet or something on November 22nd, which is the anniversary of JFK being assassinated. But around the same time, we got the story of David Arquette and his bloody wrestling match. And I was like, interesting, because he's in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer. So we got a TV show, Buffy the Vampire Slayer, then we got David Arquette. And then I talked about Luke Perry being David Arquette's best friend, And then David Arquette, or Luke Perry, ends up dying exactly by my blog post 3 months and 10 days later in Buffy the Vampire Slayer equals 310, and so on, right? And I'm only bringing this up because in the movie Buffy the Vampire Slayer, a big thing that I remember about that movie, and when I talk about that movie, I always tell people that Ben Affleck is also in that movie. I think it's even his first movie. And he has like one line where they're in the basketball game and the vampire takes the ball or he takes the ball and he hands it back and he says, "Here, take it." And that's just the memory I always had of that movie and Ben Affleck being in that movie. And Ben Affleck in 2015, the big thing was he was going to be the new Batman. And if you look up Ben Affleck's birthday just so happens to be the same day that Donald Trump said that he was Batman at the Iowa State Fair. And it's also the same day that Napoleon was born. So there's something to that, right? Ben Affleck. It's even funnier too because like a week ago I was tired and I just randomly turned on the movie Dazed and Confused on Netflix. And I haven't really watched any full movies, none really recently. So just seems weird. Dazed and Confused. And he's in that movie too. But anyway, I went back and I was trying to make sure that I knew what I was talking about. I thought maybe I've just been saying this for all of these years and that really isn't even a true thing, that Ben Affleck's even in the movie. And maybe he doesn't even, maybe it's somebody else and I always just thought it was Ben Affleck. And if you go back and watch it, it truly is Ben Affleck, but he says, "Take it, man," instead of "Here, take it." But when I went back and looked at this movie too, I just looked at this movie. I still have it loaded up here. Look at this. Before the whole Ben Affleck scene, the coach is encouraging the guys or whatever, and he's running this play on this board. What in the world does he have on here, right? Talk about, Illuminati symbolism in your face, right? I never noticed this as a kid. How hilarious, the pyramid with the all-seeing eye and Sirius, and then we got the infinity symbol, and then I don't know, I haven't studied enough. I don't, you know, the Vesca Pisces. I don't know. I don't know what it all means for sure, but what are the odds this is even, why would this even be on his playbook, Like, it's so ridiculous that they put this in your face and people could watch this movie, see this, and not even question it. Like, or even if they do see it and they still just think it's no big deal. Like, what is wrong with the world? Why in the world is that written on there? Why is there not just a real basketball play written on there, What in the world is a pyramid and an infinity symbol and so on doing written on this guy's basketball play? It makes no sense whatsoever. But the another interesting thing, I need to go back and just rewatch this whole movie, but I noticed their mascot is a pig. It's the Hogs, and that's really important to this year because it's a Chinese pig year. And think about what I just said about China and the World's Fair and whatnot, right? So it's a Chinese pig year. The mascot's a pig. I'll leave some videos in the description where I tell you and explain why that's so important to what is going on with this year. Another thing that's really interesting to me in regards to the World's Fair is a long time ago I documented how the President William McKinley, who was the 25th president, and Trump in Gematria equals 25, he got assassinated at the World's Fair in Buffalo. And this was all synced up to Barack Obama, which is interesting because August 10th is also World Lion Day, and Obama said that he was the Lion King, and he's also born during the time of Leo, which is the lion. And we had the Ethiopian airline crash on the date of 3/10 that synced up to Buffy, and it was the Ethiopian airline crash that was going to Kenya, which is where the setting for the Lion King is, and Ethiopia is important because of Haile Selassie, who is supposedly the second coming of Jesus Christ, who's the Lion of the tribe of Judah. And there's all of this lion stuff that's going on, and the word Leon actually means lion, and the guy who assassinated William McKinley, his name just so happened to be Leon Frank, however you say that right there with the C, right? And Frank is also reminds us of France. So we got Leon, Frank, whatever. And his birthday was the same day or the anniversary of the French Revolution, and also the same day that Napoleon died on, right? 5-5. And if you go back and watch what I was talking about with the Big Bang Theory, a lot of it had to do with the film Stand By Me and how we got all these stories in the media that were connected to these people from Stand By Me, but we were missing Will Wheaton and Kiefer Sutherland. And then the next couple days, we got a Will Wheaton on the Big Bang Theory, and he hadn't been on there for over a season, which was odd. And then a few days later, we got the Sutherland Springs church shooting, right? And Kiefer Sutherland, Will Wheaton. Fox News had an article about Will Wheaton saying that people prayed and they still died at the Sutherland Springs church shooting. So they both came up in the media right after I talked about the Stand By Me theme. But Donald Sutherland is the vampire trainer in the movie Buffy. But what's interesting about Kiefer Sutherland is he's in this TV show called 24, and in that TV show, they assassinate the first black president after he leaves office. So there's something important to it. Iowa's governor right now is Kim Reynolds, who has the same birthday as Obama, August 4th. And the only reason that she's the governor is because Terry Branstad had stepped down as the governor, and he went on to become the United States ambassador to China, right? And her birthday's also interesting too. August 4th, which in most parts of the world they write it as 8/4, or they write it as 4/8, and in America we write it as 8/4. And all of the stuff with the wall symbolism is supported, the number 48. Even the word Iowa equals 48. Iowa equals 48. Wall equals 48. Donald Trump equals 48. He won the biggest election upset since the year, 48. Mike Pence became the 48th vice president. He won just after the Cleveland Indians lost in the World Series. They haven't won a World Series since the year 48. There's a lot of stuff synced up to it, you know. That's why, North Korea equals, well, I thought North Korea equaled 48. Kim Jong-un equals 48. Kim Jong-un equals 48. Also, World War equals 48. They also said Russia was meddling in the elections. Russia equals 48. Illuminati equals 48. Illuminati. Freemason equals 48. So it's definitely important. August 4th is definitely important. And this lady's the governor now because the former Iowa governor is the United States ambassador to China. But I bring all that stuff back up about Obama because in 16, when we had the Alton Sterling shooting and then the Philando Castile shooting, and Alton Sterling, it was absolutely just so fake. They had two different camera angles. There wasn't even a guy standing there, so how could they have that other camera angle without filming it twice? It makes no sense whatsoever. But that story happened in Baton Rouge, Louisiana, and I talked about how after Obama gave his final State of the Union, he went to Omaha, Nebraska, or I can't remember what the exact place. He either went to Baton Rouge or he went to Omaha first, one or the other. I can't remember. I think he went to Omaha, and then he went to Baton Rouge, which is in Louisiana. Think about France and so on, and that's where Alton Sterling got shot. But he gave a speech at McKinley High School, and that's the first time he'd ever been there, and so on. And Baton Rouge named after the red stick of the Homa people. That's, Homa and the Omaha Indians were important to this, and they came from the area of Cleveland where Donald Trump had his national convention, and so on. The Omaha, it's hard to explain. There's a lot to go back to, but Philando Castile, at that same time, he had died at what was Can't think of what the town's called right now. Falcon Heights, Minnesota. So we got the the Alton Sterling shooting in Baton Rouge, but we had Obama visit Baton Rouge and go to McKinley High School. Then we had the Philando Castile shooting just after the Alton Sterling one in Falcon Heights, Minnesota. And in history, Teddy Roosevelt was William McKinley's vice president. And just before William McKinley got assassinated at the World's Fair in Buffalo, Teddy Roosevelt gave a speech about carrying the big stick, and then Baton Rouge is named after the red stick of the Homa people. So hopefully that makes sense. I need to find an old video where I explained it a lot better, but it's been a while since I've covered this information, so I can't even remember it all and how it all went up. There was something to do with Little Wayne had a seizure on the plane, and he had to emergency land in Omaha as well at that time, and that was synced up once again to the Batman shooter because Lil Wayne had that video with the skeletons and the movie theater and whatnot. So there's still something important to Obama, I guess. You know, the Chelsea Manning stuff, that was all important to Obama, who commuted Chelsea Manning, and it was all about the number 17. Even the word stick equals 17, when I'm thinking about it. Stick equals 17, and that's what the whole important thing was. I wonder what William McKinley equals. William McKinley equals 72. That's interesting because that's what I documented about on this thing here about the new Spider-Man that comes out on 7/2. And the JFK met the Pope on 7/2, 144 days before he was assassinated. And Donald Trump met Pope Francis on the 144th day of the year on his 4th month and 4th day of being the president. And if you add out 44, it equals 144. It's a big number around political assassination. The first president to die in office was William Henry Harrison, who died on 4/4, and Abraham Lincoln was shot on the date of 14/4. You know, all throughout history, this number is important. Obama was the 44th president. Trump is the 44th person to be the president. So there's a lot going on with it. Let's look at William McKinley again. Just want to look him up. It's been a while. January 29th to September 14th. That's an interesting day this year as well. It's a day connected to the harvest moon stuff I was talking about. That's why Neil Young's ex-wife died. I thought I just saw on Zach's blog too something about O.J. Simpson, right? Which reminds us of Buffalo. That was in the mainstream media. It's Buffalo. I don't know. Herbert Hoover equals that. Herbert Clark Hoover. Notice Herbert Hoover has the same gematria as Donald Trump too. 159. Donald Trump, 159. But, I don't know. I'll leave the video there. I just wanted to make a video showing all this stuff connected to the World's Fair. August 10th, still important to France. There's something going on with China. Iowa's just really important. It's some type of catalyst to all this France stuff. I don't know. Who knows? Maybe something will happen at the Iowa State Fair this year. I don't think so, but there's something symbolic about it, that's for sure. I guess since I'm going here, I might as well just talk about some of these other posts really quick. It's already long enough, but I went back and watched part of my video where I talked about Corey Taylor and how he synced up to Kanye West, and I noticed he's wearing a Star Wars shirt, which was interesting because a lot of the stuff that I documented about with uh, the Big Bang Theory, it connected to this big hope theme, and that's why Slipknot's All Hope Is Gone album was important. The one that has the song Gematria, the killing name. And, you know, Mark Hamill was the guy, I spelled it wrong, I think, but Mark Hamill was the guy who married Sheldon and Amy on the Big Bang Theory, and Jerry O'Connell, the fat kid on Stand By Me, was Sheldon's brother. And he's supposed to be married by Will Wheaton, but Luke Skywalker ended up marrying him, so. Star Wars. He emphasizes the word not in this video too, and not equals 310. And it's all about Freddy Krueger too. Around the time we had the death of Freddie Gray, that was all synced up to Baltimore. And Baltimore is important to the Civil War. It's where the first death of the Civil War was. Freddie Gray got injured on the day the Civil War began, and then he died on the day of the first death of the Civil War in Baltimore. And then he died in Baltimore, right? And there was all kinds of stuff I pointed out with that such as we had the movie 50 Shades of Grey that came out just before Freddie Gray died, and in history, the Confederates wore different shades of gray uniforms because they couldn't afford the dye and so on. But it was also really synced up to Freddy Krueger and the VMAs or whatever, and the first person to die in a Freddy Krueger movie, her name was Tina Gray, the character. And just before the day of the VMAs, later that year, Wes Craven, the creator of Freddy Krueger or Nightmare on Elm Street, had died. And we had these hurricanes that were synced up to Freddie Gray. It was Hurricane Fred and Tropical Storm Erica, or vice versa. Fred Erica, and then his twin sister was named Fred Erica. And all kinds of stuff. Exactly what I was talking about. And it was synced up to the VMAs and the importance of Kanye West, who sang at Glastonbury in June that year, and he sang the Queen song, or the Freddie Mercury song, Bohemian Rhapsody. And then that's why Kanye West was calling him out, because after he did that, he said that he was the greatest living rock star. And then Corey Taylor had called him out. It was all about Freddie. There was all kinds of stuff with Freddie Krueger, Freddie Gray, Freddie Mercury. And earlier in 2018, after Kanye West went to the White House, we got the story of Slipknot going to be performing at the Iowa State Fair for the first time. And the tickets went on sale on November 2nd, which is the same day that the movie Bohemian Rhapsody came out, right? And around the same time I was talking about this Freddie symbolism that was going on and how it was synced up to my uncle Freddie. My uncle's named Freddie, and his birthday, when I looked it up, just so happened to be August 10th. Like, what are the odds, you know? Talking about all this Rocky Colavito stuff, and how his birthday is August 10th, and it's synced up to the Cleveland Indians. And Trevor Bauer, the guy who hurt his finger by the drone, and before they played the Cubs or whatever, right? There was all this finger symbolism, and it was connected to this Fred symbolism, if that makes sense. Trevor Bauer was the player that I was talking about a lot with it. And what's so funny is if you look up Corey Taylor, you find out that he was actually in a movie where he played the character Bauer, and that movie starred Robert Englund, who also portrayed as Freddy Krueger. And then when you look up Robert Englund, you find out he briefly was considered for the part of Han Solo in the original Star Wars, and he's basically the only reason that Mark Hamill became Luke Skywalker, because he was close friends with him and he told him to get off the couch and go apply for Luke Skywalker. And then he became, go try out, and he ended up becoming the Luke Skywalker. And then think of his name, Robert Englund, right? All of this stuff was connected to Queen Elizabeth, the Queen song, Robert Englund. Then we get Wes Craven, who died. Taylor Swift becomes the queen of the VMAs. Her and Beyonce have the same gematria as Queen Elizabeth II. Then we had the Mets in the World Series lose to the Royals. The Mets playing Queens. There's the blackout that happened on 9/19 and then it came back on at 9:23, and it was all synced up to the Pope as well. Pope Francis' visit to the White House at 9:23 or 9:23 at 9:23 in the morning. Came to America on his 923rd day as Pope, and Kansas City equals 122, just like Pope Francis. And the guy who dressed up like Pope Francis caught a home run ball of Salvador Perez earlier in the year that was synced up to them. We're going on to win the World Series. So, I don't know. Just wanted to point out this Star Wars thing. It's important. And it's all important. Just lead me back to this Fred symbolism. And, I know it's important just because I'm supposed to see my Uncle Fred, or Freddie is what I call him, but his birthday is August 10th. That's the whole point of it all. I've also recently mentioned a lot about NASCAR and the Xfinity series and possibly someone dying in NASCAR or something connected to it. And I noticed that this racer in the Xfinity series for JR Motorsports and all of the stuff I was talking about was synced up to Dale Earnhardt. So this guy races for Dale Earnhardt's team even. He's from Des Moines, Iowa. And if you go from his birthday to August 10th, it's 48 days. And a lot of what I was talking about with Dale Sr. and Dale Earnhardt Jr. was all about how Dale Sr. crashed into the wall. And then this year, the Daytona 500 was on the 48th day of the year, and so on. It's all about this wall symbolism. And Donald Trump, right? Donald Trump visited the Western Wall in Jerusalem just before he met Pope Francis, just days before. And August 10th is the day that Tisha B'Av begins, which is the remembrance of the destruction of the two temples. And we're talking about how it's all synced up to the third temple and so on. So even the Kentucky Derby was all synced up to, if you look up history and you look up Tacitus and you look up Titus and so on, Titus was the ruler when they destroyed the second temple, and Tacitus was one of the guys who recorded all of the information. That's why that horse was named that. I also pointed out there's a NASCAR race, an Xfinity one, on June 16th that's held in Iowa, and it's 56 days before August 10th. And NASCAR equals 56, Paris, France 56, Eiffel Tower 56, ISIS 56. NASCAR was founded by the guy named Bill France. So Iowa's also important too, because the first guy ever to die in World War was supposedly Merle Hay, who died in France, and he's from Iowa. That's why there's even a mall named after him and a road named after him in Des Moines. And then World War II, the first guy to die was a guy from Iowa named Robert Lucy, or however you pronounce that. But he died in Norway, which makes me think of the troll theme, but possibly nothing. So I'll leave it there. I need to get some sleep. I won't be able to, I probably won't even make any blog posts for the next like 4 or 5 days because I have to go to work and I have so many gigs lined up and whatever else that I don't know how much time I'll even have. And just a lot of stress going on here. So, whatever. We'll see what happens. I know I'm rambling here, but a big thing that a lot of this has connections to is also this Saturday, May 25th, where I'm DJing for this 150th anniversary of the town Dow City, Iowa. And that's really important to all this. So I'm just interested to see how things in my life play out. I'll try to document some things. Maybe I'll do it on my phone or this or that. But there's some interesting things coming up on these dates. And I definitely need to document, but I have like 0 time. So I'm done rambling. Have a good one. Peace.